Hi, everybody. It's Bob Ost. It's Friday, February 3rd, and it's our 141st consecutive TRU community gathering. We've been doing these since April 17th, 2020, in response to a little thing called COVID. Oh, my goodness. What a loudmouth that turned out to be. It's just, and it's still making waves and making trouble. It's just a big old troublemaker, that COVID. We're returning to live theater again, and we're trying to get back to something resembling the old normal. People are still getting COVID. Take it from me, people are still getting COVID. I had it like over Christmas, but we all can continue to be careful and be masked and be cautious. I think that's a good idea. Our conversations have just traveled all over the place for 141 weeks, and today they landed on something that's near and dear to me. And actually, it involves TRU. So I'm part of the conversation today, or TRU is part of the conversation today.
As well, you should be.
Well, thank you. And we'll figure. We're gonna just play this by ear and see how it goes. But for my viewers out there in podcast land and in YouTube land, we'd love to have you here. We'd love to actually have you here in the room and get to know you and have you tell us a little bit about yourself and be part of the conversation and ask us questions if you want. You'll be in the room asking questions. To get on the list, it's not hard. It's really not hard. Just email me at trunltd@aol.com, and we'll invite you every week. And we got a lot of interesting things coming up. Next week, I actually am very excited about what we're talking about. We're going to talk about women producers. We call it Breaking Up the Boys Club. We're going to have some interesting people, some interesting women come on and talk about the specific challenges of being a woman in theater and being a producer. Come and join us for that. And the week after that, it's going to be a little bit lighter and more fun with David Armstrong. We're going to just talk about musicals. We're going to talk about musical films and stage musicals and the difference between them, and the ones that we love and the ones that we may never forgive. The movies that ruined our favorite musicals and the movies that made them wonderful. So be part of it. Join us. Be with us. Today, I have a good friend. I have the woman on today who 7 years ago said, "Bob, you really want to start doing things on virtual." And I said to her, "What? Are you kidding? Why would I?"
You got angry at me, and you refused to hear about it for 3 years. Every time I brought it up, you'd get angry at me.
Angry at you? I was just saying, how do we do this? Okay. You don't know why you would, in front of like a whole universe of people, say you get angry at me, but all right. I didn't know what to do. I didn't know how to do it. The other thing that I wanted to say was that what you kept saying was TRU could go global. TRU could actually be global. And I was like, no, my little organization that I started in New York is going to be global. How's that going to happen? Well, when I finally got on Zoom, April 17th, 2020, I started seeing the truth in what you were telling me. Basically, we attracted people from all over the globe. Today in our room, we have people from Australia and UK and all over the country. So belated thank you. And I'm sorry I didn't listen to you, but I don't think I was angry.
Well, you didn't want to hear about it because I kept pressing you and you didn't want to hear.
Because I didn't know how to do it, but never mind. So welcome to the Cate Cammarata fan club and bickering club. So here we are. We're starting off good here.
You and I have been friends since the 80s, right?
Yes, we've known each other a long time.
Very, very long time. I've been literary manager with you since 2013. I was literary manager. I started reading plays when I was in grad school, 2012. So now I've been literary manager for like 10 years with you.
At least, isn't it more?
Well, if you count 2012, but I wasn't leading the pack then. I was
Oh,
just,
okay.
and stepping in to fulfill whatever was necessary. And then
Yeah,
he made
and
me the right manager the next year.
the thing that I love about Cate, I love a lot of things about Cate. Um, she's got a strong dramaturgical background, and she actually teaches dramaturgy um, at college. And right now, where are you teaching now?
I'm teaching at Baruch, so I don't teach dramaturgy at university anymore. I did that at Stony Brook.
At Stony Brook, okay.
Baruch, it doesn't have a major, it just has a minor.
But the thing about that is, I really strongly believe in the beauty and the necessity of dramaturgy and structure and all that. And so a lot of what we do and a lot of what we talk about has to do with putting, it's not rules, but giving people structures to work with and to understand. And we're here today to talk about musical theater, but I think we're going to probably sneak a little bit of non-musical in there as well, especially since we're getting ready to do our annual play reading series. But we are also going to talk a little bit today about the TRU Voices Musical Series. We're going to talk about other programs that TRU offers in association with Create Theater. But let's start with Create Theater. Let's start with you and Create Theater, Cate. So talk to us about your background. For the three people in the room who don't know you, I mean,
Yeah.
it really is a Cate Cammarata fan club today.
Well,
But YouTube viewers and podcast listeners may not know you. So what do you want them to know about you?
been doing theater all my life. Then I went back to grad school as an older adult and got an MFA in dramaturgy. And it's just been amazing ever since. So that's when I started, like right after I got my MFA, I started with TRU and started reading scripts and things like that. Owen, if you want, because I keep telling Owen he should consider going back to grad school for dramaturgy because he wants to be a dramaturg. And anyway, so when in 2013, 2014, I also was working with an online entrepreneur. Catherine said, women know. She was a female entrepreneur out in Sag Harbor, and she was all over the internet. So she taught me how to create communities and try to have a business online. So that's what I was trying to transfer. And I made a pitch to the TRU board and everything else, and everybody else loved it, which, but she was global. So I knew it was possible. So those ideas that I pitched to the TRU board, I started just doing it myself, right? We already had TRU. We already had the play reading series and the musical reading series. And I went back for a graduate degree in dramaturgy just because I love to read scripts and I love to work with writers. So those of you who know me, that's my sweet spot. That's what I like better than anything else, is just rolling up our sleeves and attacking a script. Really like to work one-on-one with everybody. But so then the pandemic happened. Well, first in 2015, I started Create Theater, but it was
there you go. That's what I wanted to get to. Yeah.
Yeah, 2015, I started Create Theater because I was working with writers in Europe and Australia, and here, all over the United States, because I was online, and it was a very good platform for that. And you can do readings, and I could work with scripts all over the place. So then the pandemic happened. And because I was already
pandemic, what pandemic?
I was already working with writers on 3 continents. And everyone was like, oh my gosh, what are we going to do? What are we going to do? I said, well, we're just going to have a reading series every Monday night on Zoom. The only thing is, if I give you a reading, I want you to attend other people's readings and support each other and won't let anybody go down the rabbit hole of depression and blah, 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 because it was a very tenuous time. So that's what we did. So all year, 2020, every Monday night, we had a reading. So thank you, Eric. So then what do? Well, then we started putting them on stage. So I had the Create Theater Festival, but first in 2021, there are some writers wanted to work with me more deep, one-on-one, and I wanted to work with them. So I started the Experts Theater Company, ETC, just because my idol was Ellen Stewart, La Mama, ETC, but it's not Experimental Theater Company, it's the Experts Theater Company. So that's my hat tip to Ellen Stewart, who was my philosophical mentor. But I didn't have a garage in the Lower East Side. So I had a Zoom space, so I gave it away to artists. So we had our first festival.
Well, let's take this a little slowly, a little bit more slowly. Let's savor it. Let's enjoy it. Let's start. First of all, you started Create Theater technically in 2015. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Okay. So I know you said some of this, but I got a little confused about some of it. What were you originally doing when you started Create Theater?
Working with writers.
So
And
it was a one-on-one sort of situation?
It was one-on-one, but I wanted them to know each other so that they could form like writing groups and just get to know each other, because I believe theater's collaborative and you needed to be in community to do your best work. So I really did that ad hoc with whoever came to me.
So how did the community aspect of it work before, or were you already doing it virtually? You started doing it virtually from the beginning. Back when you wanted me to go virtual.
Yes.
Okay.
Right.
So, were you using Zoom from the beginning? I mean, what has changed since then?
I was using Zoom.
So it's basically Zoom has been with you since 2000. Yeah.
Because that's what my entrepreneur friend was using.
So curious. Has anything changed in terms of your structure or how you've been doing things over the years? What has changed or what has evolved?
We got a lot more on our plate, because if you're going to really walk the walk with writers and offer a service, I kept trying to think, how can I help writers? How can I help writers? How can I help writers? So Create Theater, really early on, we had the virtual happy hour, which was great. Many of you were on the virtual happy hours and you got to know each other and sit at little virtual cocktail tables and network. And that was great. But then we formed ETC, which is the theater company that I could work more in detail with a lot of people. And then they could come in and they could give feedback on everybody else. And I also know that it's the small communities where you really feel like you belong, just like in college, right? You have a few important group of friends. And then the university can be as big as you want, but you have this place where you belong.
So basically community is very near and dear to both of us. I mean, that's basically what I try to create with TRU over the years. And you also were trying to create a community of writers.
Right. So we have a large community called Create Theater, and then we have the Experts Theater Company, where we have teaching. Right now we have Monday night, we started the reading series. Now there's a reading every Thursday night on Zoom. And then my New Yorkers wanted to be in person and together. So I got some donations last year, because you are our fiscal sponsor, as you know, and I had some money. So I said, well, the first Thursday I can give, a reading space so that you can actually present the reading. So now I'm getting people for the first Thursday. Barbara Kelly is going to be one, to actually have a reading, and I can, or you as our fiscal sponsor can write the check to wherever so that we can actually do that. And I'm really proud of that.
Again, let me just, are you talking about virtual reading? There's a trend, you've made a transition.
In person.
You jump to the in-person part of it fast, which is why I wanted to go back and see if I could follow the steps. Prior to COVID, prior to shutdown, did Create Theater have a live component, or was it all virtual?
It was Cate Cam Productions. Whoever hired me as a general manager or producer, executive producer, or a director or a dramaturg, they had that. They had that live component of me. but it wasn't quite like this. It was just Cate Cam Productions.
So your first jump into live performance was last year's New Play Festival, right? New
Well,
Works Festival.
no, hi, Karen.
Hi,
I'm going to turn your video off.
sorry.
That's okay. So no, as I said, I was doing live performance as a theater maker before the pandemic.
No, I mean with Create Theater, with the Create Theater. Create Theater is an entity. It's separate from
virtual. Yeah.
Separate from Cate Cammarata. So Create
Yes.
Theater was your company, and that company was functioning virtually pre-COVID. Like
Yes.
you had a 5-7 year jump on COVID, on the rest of us in terms of all that.
Yes.
So I mean, I want to acknowledge the fact that you were forward thinking, and you really were breaking ground at the time that I was like, what is this? What are you talking about? I mean, I admit it. I didn't understand it, Kate, and I didn't know how it would work. I really
Okay.
didn't.
You weren't comfortable with it.
And the other thing is, as you recall, there were startup costs that I didn't have in my budget. So
Right.
we didn't. That was the main problem for me. But yeah, I've caught up with you. so and here we are. No, I don't know about that. So here we are, caught up on Zoom together. And this is an odd conversation to have, because almost everybody in the room is part of your group. So it's like the choir is like, the choir knows all the songs, everything. The choir just knows the words already. I want to actually say to the room that please, if you have comments or questions or anything that you want to know about either Kate's Create Theater opportunities or anything that we talk about in terms of TRU, please put your question in there. Owen is going to be finding questions. Put a big Q first so that we know you're asking a question, and he'll be drawing our attention to them. So
you want to know what I do?
I want to jump. I guess I want to jump to last year, because it was such a big jump that you made to doing a New Works Festival. Have we covered everything that's virtual, that's available to people virtual? I mean, have we covered everything that you can do for them virtually through Create Theater?
No.
So go. Okay, so do that again, and then we'll.
Okay. All right. So virtually Create Theater this year, for 2 years I've spent on ETC, our theater company. So we have virtually, we have experts webinars the first Wednesday of every month. The second Wednesday, we have the art of playwriting, which is like a writer's group for the entire company. We have a songwriters workshop, particularly led by our David Kurkowski, but it's all about how to structure your song. And then we have a very prestigious member that actually has won awards and Grammy nominations. She also helps, and she'll listen to your song and she'll give you advice.
So what is the structure of that? How do people, everybody in the room, please mute yourselves if you're not muted, or I can mute people. Okay. So
and producer office hours, where I invite producers to come in and just really frankly talk about whatever people in the room want to talk about.
So let's talk about this like one thing at a time. If I know that there's at least one person in the room who doesn't know Create Theater. So for her sake and for anybody else's sake, what are the steps that the writer needs to take to become part of your community and to take advantage of your programs?
So we're going to begin offering more on just Create Theater, which costs $0 to join. All right, you just get my newsletter, and then you'll get everything that we're doing. We're going to be having some collaboration events, some pitching nights, networking events. We already had some of them virtually. Musical development, producer development workshops, some in person, because people want to be back in the room again, and then some virtually. So that's Create Theater, online, virtually, and in person. But ETC, where all the work gets done, is my membership-based theater company. And that's where I just sit and I work on it with you. So then we have about 60 scripts that we're developing, various parts.
How many?
60.
60. That's 60.
Yeah.
What do you do in your spare time?
I don't have any spare time.
Okay.
You guys are my spare time. So then what do? So I had to get it on stage. So that's why I had the Create Theater Festival. And we produced the whole festival. Extraordinary production values. I'm saying that. Hopefully, I think everybody else agrees.
I will
Right?
readily say that you used a unit set that I thought was very clever and very, very useful and really adapted to the different shows. I thought that was very well done, the unit set that you created.
Yeah, it was pretty amazing. We had 6 new musicals and then 1 new play. And so that was last year. This year we have a reading series, because when I do that production level of production again, it's going to be for an off-Broadway show. So that's what we're getting to. So to do that, I started a nonprofit. As you know, it's called the Create Theater New Works Festival. And that is a nonprofit, fiscally sponsored under Theater Resources Unlimited.
Right.
Now that is our.
I've heard of it.
Yes. So thank you, Bob. So that's my nonprofit. And so that now not only has the festival, I started for this year. What's new is within that festival, I'm going to have a 15-minute festival for the first 15 minutes, because those are the first 3 plot points where you really can sell your show. So that's also part of the festival within the festival.
So it's going to be 15 minutes. It's excerpts. It's not 15-minute musicals.
No.
It's just it's an excerpt
of a show, so that basically you're pitching a show, right?
So good. I think we've landed
only
back
for musicals, not for plays.
and we've landed back on topic, because we were talking about musical opportunities.
And then one more time, then in the fall I'm going to have my cabaret festival.
This is new to me. All right, tell me about the cabaret festival.
The cabaret festival is going to be at the Green Room, and it's going to be a cabaret with like 3 different shows put into one night. That's in the fall. So I plan on doing that every year, the spring and then the fall.
Okay, so it's an evening of works from new musicals. It's sort of like what New York Theater Barn does. They take, I think it's 2 or 3 musicals, and they do them in an evening. They do excerpts. They do about 15 minutes as well.
Yeah, but we have so much in the pipeline. We have so much content in the pipeline. Let's get it out. So that's what I'm trying to do.
So what is the proportion of musicals to non-musicals in terms of
80%?
What?
80%.
It's 80% musical.
Yeah.
Okay. And let's go back to the New Works Festival. How did you find the shows for your New Works Festival, and how did you determine what I think you did 7, 6
Right.
musicals,
Well,
6 musicals and 1 non-musical. Is that correct?
Exactly. The festival is only for people in ETC, because we've all been working together. So now, it's kind of like curated by me. If you think you're ready for a production, I think you're ready for a production. Now, even though this is readings, they have to be investor ready to be able to kind of like be on Theater Row. You have to be ready for a production. So it's me saying, yeah, I think you're ready. You need to get this up in front of producers and investors, artistic directors. Why don't we do this? So that's just for members of ETC, because we've been working together. Everybody knows each other. I mean, it's kind of like a group of friends by this point. So it's fun.
A little ways back, Sherry Friedman was asking, are you accepting plays to produce now? I think that was a question to you, because you were talking about doing your plays. I think I really wish I'd known when she asked that question, at what point of the conversation it was.
Plays. Right now, ETC membership is closed. I don't know when I'm going to open it up, because we have a lot of people in, and I try to give a lot of attention to these people. It's like having 60 children.
So about how many people do you have in the group?
About 60.
Also, but not in not ETC.
60 in ETC.
You have 16 ETC. Well, of course. I mean, I would have closed at 30. That's a lot of people to deal with and give individual attention to.
You know, some people are more active than others. Some people require more of my attention than others. But anyway, I want to get them on stage. And so it's mainly for these people, but that's why I'm going to be concentrating more on create theater, the larger community, with different things so that we can get to know each other. And, you know, it's all very organic like that.
So the musical components that you talked about, well, other than the fact that 80% of the shows that you're doing readings for are musicals, let's talk about that for a second, because damn, it's hard to do musicals virtually. So have you been able to, I know you have done some virtual musical readings. I think you did them earlier on, and I think we all began to face the fact that it was just really hard to do.
Well, it is hard to do. I mean, ask Joel, ask David. It's really Larry, all of you. They devised different ways to get their musicals across. So there are various ways. You have to record the music beforehand, you know. So either it's just the demo tape with scrolling lyrics and then go back into the live action of the reading, or you're lucky, you know, you have some kind of singer that's you've pre-recorded. It's not easy. Oh.
And this is what I'm going to use as a segue into the TRU Voices. We haven't done the musicals reading series since before COVID. And one of the reasons was because it became very expensive. We realized early on, you and I both realized early on, that to do a reading, record separate tracks, get an engineer to put them together and combine them, and it's so complicated. So we've avoided doing musicals in the TRU Voices series. We're doing plays right now. But now that we're sort of out of the woods with COVID and we're back into a live performance modes, we're looking into, and we're planning on doing our musicals reading series live. You and I had talked about this earlier, well, repeatedly.
Repeatedly. That's the newest thing I'm poking you about for a couple of
Okay. You're poking me, or I'm Jewish, you're hocking me.
Yeah.
Okay. The play reading series, I've become very comfortable doing it virtually, and I actually like not only the fact that it's easier to do virtually. The plays are, the musicals are not. And I also like the fact that we have flexibility in terms of time frame, because you're never putting down a down payment on a theater space, on a venue, and really locked into having to have something on a specific time. You obviously you're going to pick a target date for your virtual presentation, but if it doesn't happen, it's not the end of the world. You can always tell people we've moved the date to another time. So I like doing the play reading series virtually. I think I like it a little bit more than you do, actually, but I also like the fact that it gets we get to be seen by people all over the country and all over the world, as it turns out. I know that we're going to lose a couple things when we move into musicals. Basically, it's going to be done here in New York, and basically it's going to be limited to people that are able to be in the New York area to see these shows. The good news that I wanted to hold, that I was holding from earlier when we were talking before we started, we had a year-end fundraiser, end-of-year fundraiser, and one of the things that we actually gave people the option of giving their money towards was writer support. Writer support for us means two things, and it may mean more than two things, but the two things that I identified when we went into the fundraising was, number one, we didn't even talk about this. We do a workshop called How to Write a Musical That Works. It's a 3-part workshop, and in order to do it well and do it at all online, it requires people to actually film their musical, record the tracks, put them together, and compile something that they can present in 8 to 12 minutes. That costs money for the writers, and I always felt bad about it. One of my philosophies, and those of you who don't know, I started off in this business as a playwright, composer, and lyricist. Sometimes I went into directing, and now, of course, I'm running TRU like 140 days a week. It's like never ending. But I never want to create programs that I can't afford to take. And I'm not rich, just in case you're wondering, I'm not wealthy. So everything that I do, I try to structure in a way so that I feel like it's affordable for the writers, for my fellow writers. So we are now in a position, because we raised money at the end of the year, to actually reimburse some, if not all, of the expenses for writers to create their 8 to 10, 12-minute presentation for a musicals reading, not musicals reading, or how to write a musical workshop. The other thing that I want to let everybody know is we now have the ability to give at least a small travel reimbursement for any writer who has to come in from out of town to TRU. So we're not where we want to be with the money, but we have money now that we can use for that. So
Well, let's explain more about how to write a musical that works workshop.
Sure.
Because that's my favorite program in TRU. You and I
guess I got anxious to let everybody know that we raised money and we can help them now. Like,
well, that's exciting. That's really exciting. I just want to say one more thing about the New Works Festival. We got donated space. So I have space midtown for an office. I have space for an assistant that I can't afford, but I got a desk there, and I've got a big conference room for table reads to develop new work. It's kind of like what I used to see like at the Mint and things like that. I got space. To me, that's huge. That makes me, in my mind anyway, a real theater company. Now, not just virtual, but now we can really be, boots on the ground in Manhattan, Midtown.
I didn't know that. That's terrific.
Well, it was just last week. It was just last
well,
week.
congratulations.
The announcement, kind of.
Really?
Yeah.
Congratulations. That's amazing.
Yeah. I saw it for the first time last week.
That's absolutely amazing. That's wonderful. I'm actually looking in here. There are a couple of things that we might want to touch on before we go back to what we were saying, because they're relevant to what we were just saying. Kate McLeod wants to know, at what point in the process of creating a musical should the team consider working with a dramaturg? Well, that's a big question.
Well, I'm going to ask you, Bob, because you are a writer. I'm only the dramaturg. When do you like to engage a dramaturg?
I think after a first draft, to be honest with you. There's no reason why you can't be working with a dramaturg in the creative process, but then you get into that sticky territory of whether the dramaturg is functioning as a collaborator. And we know that from history that there are bad results from that.
Well, it doesn't have to be bad, but it does have to be negotiated.
So, I mean, if you're going to work with a dramaturg when you're just writing your piece, then you really need to be very clear with the dramaturg about what it is you want. And you have to have boundaries there.
And you have to know the dramaturg, because sometimes the ideas, so many times writers are so anxious to please a regional theater with the dramaturg or the associate artistic director who functions dramaturgically, that they twist themselves into a pretzel and their script becomes something that they really don't want it to be, just to get a production.
Well, that's true. That's true with anybody who's giving input. I mean, I know writers who the guy that owns the grocery store can make a comment and they'll do a rewrite. You really have to understand your intention and your vision and hold on to that. You don't have to be argumentative. I mean, if a dramaturg gives you suggestions, you don't have to get defensive, but you can say, I would always put it as a question. I would always put it as a question. Would that help me to achieve this? This is what I'm trying to achieve with the show. Um, Rather than reject any idea. I always tell people, we do a workshop on the director-writer collaboration. And I always tell people, one of the writers, the most useful phrase in the English language for them is, "That's interesting, I'll think about it."
When I work with
But while you're thinking about it, you need to have a conversation to determine whether or not what the dramaturg is suggesting is consistent with what you're trying to achieve.
Well, as a dramaturg, the very first question I ask is, so what are you trying to get across? What's the gift you want to give the audience at the end? You know, what means something to you that they understand? And then that generally starts the conversation. And because my objective is not to rewrite your play. My objective is to try to make your play work, to give over the message that you're trying to give. So.
And by the way, the other time to work with a dramaturg, if you don't, if you just want to be objective about it, when you're lost, when you reached a point where you're like, how do I make this happen? A dramaturg is the perfect person to talk to and help guide you through it. And that's when the rules come in. The rules, there's no rules police, but the rules sure are handy when you're trying to figure out what's not working.
Yes. My 10 plot points.
Yeah, there's a little checklist that's really very handy.
Let's go back to how to write a musical that works.
Okay, let's do that.
So back in 2013, I think it is, you and I started having conversations about putting a workshop together. So we collaborated and we ended up with this really great musical workshop with a panel. And from the very beginning, we had Skip Kennan and we had Nancy Galladay, and then later I asked my friend Ken Cernelia of Disney to come, and so now he's a regular on the panel. So what
all of the above are going to be on the panel at the end of March. I think it's March 29th.
I just gave you a free plug.
Yeah.
But anyway, you and I moderate it together, and then we select the presentations. And then this is so exciting in person. I'm going to say it's so exciting in person to see, like, for instance, when Skip jumps up to the piano and he remodulates or whatever, and it is just an exciting, very, very New Yorky thing to do. So it's a great workshop, and I am putting a plug in, but I like it better in person.
You like it better in person?
Yes, I do. I
go back to the same old thing, which is that if we do it in person, then there's all these expenses involved for people who are from outside.
But you now have travel benefits.
I hadn't thought of them for this workshop. I sort of earmarked them for TRU Voices, but okay. That's okay. We'll figure it out.
Whatever. And as Neil Rubenstein likes to say, it's not just for creatives. Instead, for producers, they ought to know how musical works too. So now I'm saying producers ought to submit the musicals so that they can see what works and what doesn't. But it's a 3-part musical workshop series. So if you come to part 1, part 2, part 3, you will have absorbed the entire course, basically. And then you named like the different parts, and I always get it mixed up.
Okay,
whatever
I will.
You want to call it, you call it.
But I want to take a step backwards, and I want to talk about going from the TRU Voices to actually having this workshop, and one of the reasons why we did it. One of the things that's always been frustrating, I guess it's frustrating, that's made me sad, is that we can't afford to do more than 2 or 3 shows in the musical series or in the play reading series. And there are always a lot more shows that are submitted to us that really are worthwhile and interesting. And I always was looking for ways of actually expanding our ability to support the writers and their work. And those of you who don't know, TRU Voices goes back 19 years. This is like your well, that's longer than that. I think this is about your 21st or 22nd year. We've been doing this for a long time. And at one point, I just started thinking about other ways to help writers and other ways to help the development of new works. And I came up with a series of programs which are called TRU Beginnings, opportunities for early development. So this is all about early development. we consider early development, I guess, well, that's kind of up in the air too. Even the True Voices reading series is considered early development, really. True doesn't produce any commercial Broadway shows, so I guess everything we do is early development, really. But the things that I started identifying that I thought would be useful were, first of all, we'd started doing a practical playwriting workshop with Patrick Blake. It was originally done and created with Diana Amsterdam, who was no longer with us. But Cate has taken over as the dramaturg point of contact for that particular workshop. How to write a practical playwriting, how to write for commercial production, also stemmed from some ideas that I discussed with Patrick Blake originally, and also with Diana originally. And we basically are there to kind of guide you into understanding how what makes a play attractive to a producer, and what makes a play like terrifying to a producer. I mean,
when are we going to have that one? When are we going to have that?
Whenever you and Patrick decide you want to do it, we can do that. So we could talk about that afterwards.
Okay.
So that was one way of expanding our ability to help writers. And then the second thing that we did was a writer-director communications lab, which I think I mentioned in passing before, which basically was a way of minimizing the bloody battles between writers and directors who get into production and suddenly find out they hate each other. Basically, it's very simple. Talk to each other from the beginning, set up your expectations at the beginning. That's what that's all about. And that's another workshop that I love. We give it about once a year. So we're about due for it now. And then the third thing is how to write a musical that works, which started with Carol Degier. I don't know how many of you know Carol Degier. Many of you probably do know her. She had what's her website called? Musical Theater Writers? Musical Theater Writers.
101. Hers was Musical Theater 101. And then Holly rebranded it to Musical Writers.
Yeah. So Carol came to me and said, "Why aren't you doing a first look series of musicals?" I was saying, I don't know, because we don't have the funds for it. We're not able. In case everybody doesn't know this, everything costs money. The key to being able to do any of this is actually being funded, which is one of the reasons I'm so grateful for the year-end appeal. It just made things so much easier going forward. So thank everybody who did support us. But Carol wanted us to do this. She called it FFF, first something. I don't remember what it was. I don't know why it was FFF now, right? But it was. And
Feedback Festival, is it?
Feedback First Festival or something like that. And so we started doing it without having any real structure to it, other than showing new works to a room full of people and a panel. And were you with me from the beginning on that?
It wasn't
at the Players Theater.
I came in at the end of the Players Theater, and you and I did the first How to Write a Musical That Works workshop that was uniquely our own. You and I brainstormed that as as a 3-part, first, beginning, middle, and an end, and then what we were to do. So no, I wasn't participating in whatever it was before.
I can't remember.
I'm sorry, I was there with Carol. It came from her out of the ASCAP musical theater workshop,
right?
Where her and our people she knew were in town for that, but they weren't part of the workshop. And she made a little workshop to present small pieces of those other pieces to the other writers. And she
right,
did that
and then she came.
She came to you, yeah.
Then she came to us, and she convinced me after two lunches, and maybe a couple drinks. I'm not sure that we could do this. And but the thing is, I didn't know what was unique about what we were doing, because I'm very familiar with the BMI workshop. I'm very familiar with ASCAP, and I'm very familiar with other workshops that support the development of musicals. The one thing that I wanted, and I think we talked about this at the beginning, Kate, was I wanted to make sure that songs were not presented out of context. From the very start, I knew that I wanted it to be presentations of songs and in the context of the scene. Because a lot of times we hear great songs and we love the songs, and then we see them in the context of the show and we go, ugh, ugh. So that was one of my guidelines. And then going to you and talking to you about it, of course, you brought the dramaturgical aspect of it. And so we decided to split this into the classic three-part structure of that's sort of applies to all plays and ultimately all films as well. The beginning, the middle, and the end, to really put it in simple terms. So the beginning we identified as the issues being introducing people to the world of your show, so that they understand where they are, what the rules are, and how things are going to work going into the show. Your opening number has to do a lot. It works. It has to work very hard. It has to welcome people. It has to set up the rules so that we know how the storytelling is going to be done, and it also has to introduce, the world of the show and where we are. What is the thing about a new Welcome to a New Planet? Somebody used to talk about that.
The Eleanor Fuchs essay, Welcome to a Small Planet. The argument is that every time you go into a new show, when the lights come on, you're landed in a new planet. So you have no idea how the time works on this planet, how the social environment is, you know nothing. And so the first few minutes is all about letting you be accustomed to this new environment. Well, that's the exciting thing about theater, right?
Yeah. And sometimes that happens with an opening number. We talk a lot about different ways of opening shows. Not everything opens with a big splashy number. Some guy named Curly came on singing "Oh What a Beautiful Morning," and it was really a very, very low-key way of opening up a show, yet it seemed to have worked.
You know, what I find so much fun, because not only do we have a really, really smart panel for this, but I kind of like you and I we riff off of each other like the whole time, you know, as moderators. So
Yeah.
I really appreciate camaraderie there.
Well, thank you. So basically, the world and the want is the first of the three workshops, and the world as I just explained it, and the want basically is how you introduce your characters, and the most effective way of introducing your characters 11 out of 10 times is to actually let the audience know what it is that they want, what is their deep driving desire, and that's why you have I want songs. Characters can be introduced, and then at some point in the first 15 minutes or so, we have to know what it is they want, why they're there, and what they're trying to achieve, right?
And that's the tricky thing. That's why I want the first 15-minute festival, so you can sell your show, but you have to nail those first 15 minutes with the opening number, the inciting event, and then somewhere in there, the I Want song.
Explain inciting event to anybody who doesn't know who's in the room.
They're all writers. I think that something happens that breaks the stasis, the world of the play forever, and then the protagonist has to decide what to do, and then that launches the rising action.
Oh, for a couple updates.
Okay.
Patrick says he's ready to do practical playwriting anytime. So, guys, send me an email if you want me to push for this, and we'll make it happen. Roy O'Neill, I didn't remember this, Roy. He was in the First Act Feedback Festival with Eddie and the Palisades, Now Save the Palace. So it was the first song presented that morning at the Players Theater. Wow, we do have history, don't we, Roy? That's amazing. So part two, just to continue along these lines, since we're getting late already. Part two is conflict and obstacles. So basically, in part two, we talk about ways of showing conflict and whether conflict is best expressed through music or through scene. It really depends. There's a lot of different points of view on that. Do you want to say anything about that before I move on?
the end of Act One, but my dogs also want to say something, so I'm
Oh.
like, say something.
Okay, so in conflict and obstacles, we talk about how to musicalize conflict, but we also talk about heading towards the end of Act One and how you bring your act to a surprising conclusion, and how you and also how you bring the audience back in Act Two. So if there is an act break. And then the final thing that we do is reckoning a resolution. We basically talk about how to end on a satisfying note, so to speak, and to wrap things up and to basically resolve the issues.
Right.
And the other thing that we always talk about is the escalating want. So the want at the beginning for the your main character or your main character, actually all your characters should have wants. It's best to only put people on stage who actually are trying to do something, because theater is an active medium. People are trying to achieve things. They're acting. So the turnaround song at the end of Act One often is a development of the original want of the character, or a realization that he doesn't want what he thought he wants. This is what he thinks he needs now. And then finally, at the end of Act Two, you usually have the resolution song, which is an I want song, I've gotten what I want song, and I'm happy. Sometimes.
Well, the end of Act One is a midpoint reversal.
Right. Am I saying Act One? I thought I was saying Act Two. The end of the show.
The end of the show is
Reckoning and resolution.
a catharsis. I'm sorry.
Oh, your dog's still barking. So it's guys, it's still me. For those of you who aren't used to my talking a lot, there's nobody in the room who's not used to my talking a lot. So while we wait for her dog to stop barking, have I left any threads dangling? Anything else, guys, that I started to say that I haven't explained yet? You all know that basically I'm saying that we're going to come back with the TRU Voices musical series. Right now, I'm looking for an affordable space for us to do it. The things that are new to TRU are the fact that we have a little bit of money, so we can actually help with some of the expenses of flying in if we select your show. And we have to open up for submissions if we're going to do this at all.
So a lot of those workshops and trainings and things like that are going to be held Midtown, 40th and Madison.
Or Create Theater.
Right. So it's going to be in our new space. So that's how we're going to do that. We need to be back in person. You know, virtual is great. It really builds community. We learn, we teach, and people outside of New York can be feeling part of this little theater industry, you know, and it's really, really important. I'm the first one to say it's important.
I'll be the second one.
But being in person also is important.
I'm not as married to the in-person part of it as Cate is, as you may have noticed. I think there's so many advantages of doing things virtually and being able to be inclusive. The other thing is finding spaces in the city. Anyone who's in New York knows that it's just a big headache finding spaces to do these workshops in. We used to depend on Shetler Studios. That was one of the places we did a lot of stuff. They closed, but the good news is I've discovered that they've actually reopened those spaces under AMDA's jurisdiction, AMDA. So those spaces are still there. So I'm going to start looking into those as well. Donald wants to know, do we cast these workshops and provide director, musical director? So let's take this one at a time. I think I just lost Cate. Yeah, Cate got pulled out. So with TRU, we will give you whatever help you need. We will guide you in finding the resources that you need to create your presentation. I always offer a music director and I always offer tech people, and yet most of the people that do our workshop just go off on their own and do it on their own. But yes, Donald, if you needed help finding casts, a director, a music director, a technologist, an editor. Yeah, we help you with any of that. And for us, I think he's asking about you though, Kate. For us, it's just the one presentation of.
I'm sorry, I had to attack the door where my dogs. Yeah. So what was the question?
Okay, Donald is asking, I think it was you. Maybe you said this, but do you cast these workshops and provide director, musical director, etc.?
Do I? No. Again, like TRU, I give you some recommendations, but no, I help make matches.
The other thing that I don't think is clear is to get into your festival, your New Works Festival. The writer actually self-produces, doesn't he? She?
That's correct, but it's a collaboration. So
and what's on your side of the collaboration, just so that the people know?
it's a collaboration where the basic, venue, space, marketing, blah, 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 company, all of that kind of stuff. And then we just divide it by the number of participants.
And I just want to say about that, because I used to be the marketing director for Midtown International Theater Festival, and I was actually at the opening conversations about the New York Fringe. I didn't become part of it, but I was there when they first started talking about it. That's how old I am. The fact that these festivals, whether it's Kate's or any other festival, provides the venue for you is one of your huge money savers. One of the biggest expenses that you'll have when you're producing yourself or when you're producing any show is your venue. And so by amortizing or what's the word? Dividing up the cost of the space among the participants, you actually get a lovely space for really just a participation fee. So is there a participation fee?
Yeah, that's the whole, everything divided, the cost of the printing, the website, all of that. Company manager, not company manager, production manager, house manager, all that kind of stuff.
And Ian says he'll get a bus. So Ian's coming in. So we got Ian coming in. That's good. Catherine, I'm glad to hear. Catherine says she'd love to be there in person. The question is, we'd love to have everybody come in and to either Kate's work festival or what we're offering. But
for our
I also
festival,
know that
we have Pat doing the. I'm sorry, I stepped all over you.
it's okay.
The hip hop musical reading will be the first part of the, right after Memorial Day. So come in for that.
So I think we've reached an hour. Does anybody have any questions for us? Does anybody want to come into the room and just talk to us? Have I been coherent? When I have my moderator hat on, or my moderator hat on, and I actually have to also answer questions that I'm asking myself, I get a little confused. But hopefully I've communicated everything that I needed to communicate to everybody.
So basically, if you are developing a play, if you're developing a musical, you need to know TRU, and you need to know Create Theater. End of story.
Donald is asking if they're one performance. So do you in your festival, are you doing one performance, or did they get multiple performances?
I'm sorry, what's
in your New Works Festival? Is it one performance only, or are you thinking about doing a model where people can do more than one performance?
Well, I'm counting on 2 performances. Well, for the readings, there can be more, but I don't know how many other people want more. I know the Rhymes Over Beats one will have 4 because it's a tier 1. Okay,
so I'm confused. So let me just ask you. When I said the New Works Festival, I meant the live productions. I thought they were full productions, not readings.
No, the readings this year. They were live productions last year.
Oh, that's why I've been so confused. So Patrick, hi, welcome.
Hi.
What did you want to tell us? You want to tell?
No, I was just going to say that they're readings, not live performances.
They are readings, okay.
Yeah.
So,
But
so
ours are, the one I'm doing is going to be a little bit more elaborate than the other ones, because it'll be under different equity contract. Because
okay, and
the idea was to create something that could be used to raise investments for it. And in order to do that, we wanted to be able to film the reading and send it to potential investees.
so that leads to another question, Kate. If people are doing these readings in your live festival this coming year, what is the contract? What is the agreement that they're going to be working under, assuming that they're using union people? To everybody in the room, if you don't use union people, you don't have to worry about what the agreement is. You just be fair. That's all.
Everybody except Patrick and Rhymes Over Beats. Everybody else is doing the 29-hour guidelines, 29-hour stage reading guidelines.
Which is what we also use in TRU Voices
Correct.
when we're doing it live.
Correct.
Oh, by the way, that might be of interest to everybody. When I do the play reading series, when we do the play reading series virtually now, we were doing it for the first 2 years of COVID under the Theater Authority agreement, which basically allowed us to do the virtual presentation. We could do up to three performances of it, and then we were allowed to actually stream it for up to 4 days after the performance, and that was terrific. That was a terrific agreement. I loved it. Before we started setting up this year's TRU Voices series, I discovered that the Theater Authority no longer was doing benefit agreements for virtual presentations, only for live presentations. So now if you want to do live readings and you want to do them as a fundraiser, as a money raiser, you can go through Theater Authority as we could before COVID, and you can do them live. And there are, I think you have a 25-hour maximum number of rehearsal hours.
29 hours. But
No, in Theater Authority,
Oh, Theater.
Theater Authority benefit agreement is 25 hours. And you're not required to give your actors anything more than like a stipend. There's just no big requirements. However, now the virtual readings, I turn to SAG-AFTRA, and I'm using what's known as the micro budget. The micro budget means that you're doing something virtually that's going to cost no more than $20,000, which I think for most of us, if we're doing a reading, we don't really need to spend more than $20,000. And that also gives me a lot of flexibility in being able to do a live Zoom in initial performance, and then I can stream it. SAG is a little bit more generous. It can be more than 4 days, but we haven't really I have to negotiate with them how long I want to stream these plays this year. So I thought that was some useful information for anybody who doesn't know. Are there any other questions? Let's see, 3 messages. Oh, it has to go. What equity contract? Okay, context. Catherine, context, equity contract. The equity allows you to do a benefit through the Theater Authority. So the equity contract is actually the Theater Authority contract. But if you're doing a stage reading, equity does have a stage reading agreement. Also be careful never to call anything that's a union a contract unless it's actually contracted weekly salaries and a payroll. Let's see, live readings virtually, live readings in person, only virtual. Please just live readings virtually, live readings in person. Okay, so basically, it's because I'm still awkward with the language, with the tech language. So Kate can correct me if I'm wrong. I'm trying to say that you can do a live reading on Zoom, meaning that you're on Zoom, but it's all happening in real time with you. You're actually sitting there in real time, people are reading the play. You can also record it and have an initial performance, which is what we're doing next weekend. where it's been recorded and the initial performance of it is considered it's considered a live stream, but there's nothing really live about it because it's all filmed. Help me. What?
Well, it's the only live thing is that we are together in a virtual room watching it together.
That's it. That's
Right.
really it. Yeah, because we will be
That's the
on the
live
stage.
component, because it's just like in a movie theater, we're all there together.
It's on the stage, and we're all there, and we're watching this. And then at the end of it, by the way, in case you guys don't know, we do talkbacks with industry talkbacks with producers, and some pretty interesting people. We will send you out of the on the stage platform, and we'll send you a link to the TRU Zoom room. And then it's just like this. We're gonna have a talk back in this room that you're in right now. And when I talk about streaming on demand, I guess is what I should be saying. So after the initial performance, we can stream on demand for at least four days through SAG-AFTRA. Dave says his experience with New York Works Festival was wonderful. So kudos to you, Kate. The only hitch was a COVID outbreak. Oh, that.
That was a beautiful, beautiful production. It was really a beautiful production, David.
Any websites we suggest for a collected list of submissions to other new musical development opportunities? Oh, the Dramatist Guild has, all sorts of opportunities that they list all the time. They're not just musical. They're not separated by musical and non-musical. Just read through it. And does anybody in the room want to recommend to? I'm not sure who HB is, but anybody want to recommend to HB some other places that they can submit their work? I don't see anything else. Let's see. Musical writers. Okay, so I think Eric Jones is suggesting musical writers, which is musicalwriters.com if you want to actually check them out. Am I right, everybody? It's musicalwriters.com.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, they have the Academy Readings series.
So that's another reading series.
Well, I'm just so happy to be able to help musical writers and playwrights in New York City, because you can get a lot of eyeballs on your work here in this town.
Well, okay. To my viewers out there in YouTube and podcast land, I hope that some of this was of interest to you. I hope some of you are actually interested in musicals and actually are interested in submitting works to TRU and also Create Theater. We're here for you. We love to meet new people. We love to see new work. We do what we can. Oh, yes, and Eric is also suggesting that people look into emerging artists. They're another company that does a reading series of new works, of new musicals.
There's quite a few, I think. There's quite a few people who are offering readings and things like that.
Yeah, I didn't think I should have brought a whole list. There's you can always Google it. Opportunities for development of new musical works. They probably would come up with something. So I want to thank everybody for being with us and for bearing with me as I wore two hats today, which I'm not used to doing. And thank you, Kate, my old dear friend, and thank you for being literary manager for TRU and all the work that you do to support TRU. And also congratulations on the growth of your own company of Create Theater. And I'm hoping that, lots of, we're just the basic membership of the being part of the Create Theater community. People can just contact you, createtheater.com.
They just sign up to my newsletter. Just sign up to my newsletter so that you can receive the news of what's going on. And
do you want to type createtheater.com into the chat for people? But for those of you listening, it's Create Theater. Theater is an ER, so it's createtheater.com. So check out Create Theater. Become part of TRU. Become part of our community. Come join us in the room. Come join us next week, the week after. I'm never going to stop doing this. I'm just going to keep doing this and doing it. So if you want to support us, we do this originally. This was basically as a community service during COVID. can't really technically say we're in COVID. We're not out of COVID, but we can't say we're in COVID right now. So things have changed. Just the fact that I'm talking today about actually going live with our musicals reading series.
That's a big deal.
That's a big deal.
That's a big deal.
It's a big jump in budget. So we're going to need money to support us. So if you want to support us, you can go to TRU Donate, trudonate.com, trudonate.com.
You can also go.
And I was going to say, we fiscally sponsor Cate Cammarata and Create Theater. So if you want to give a tax deductible donation to Create Theater, you can. Do you have that? Do you have a link on your site?
I'm trying to get it. It's on the newworksfest.org. So let me just get that. And it's through TRU. So here it is. I'll put it here in chat.
So actually, if you go to the TRU donation page, you'll also see there's the option of giving money to our fiscally sponsored companies, and Create Theater is one of them. So support Cate. Actually, support Cate right now.
Thank you.
She's got a big hill to climb right now in order to be ready for this festival that she's going to do. She could really use your support. We can too, but we're actually comfortable right now and strong and healthy, and everything to do with the support of the community that we've been getting. So thank you, everyone, and come back next week. That's it.